Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the live lecture of functional analysis. In the last lecture, we have proved the Hahn-Banach theorem, a very important theorem from the point of view of existence of the functional, which tells us that if we have one functional defined on any subspace of a nonlinear space N, then the same functional can be extended to a functional on defined on whole space N, where the norm values of both the functions are equal. To prove this, the result will be has derived into two cases. If m naught is equal to m, what is m naught? M naught is actually a symbol we have used in the previous Hahn-Banach lemma, where actually m naught is a space spanned by, yes,
M and X naught.
very good. M naught is the space spanned by m and x naught, and in the lemma itself we have shown that whenever a functional exists on the linear space m, it is extended to a linear on this space m naught. Therefore, if this m naught coincides with the whole space m, then the result is automatically true, or obviously it's true, one can say. If m naught is not equals to n, then one may say that repeating the same process many times, we can get the functional depend on the whole space. But what is the guarantee that we will get the extension of the corresponding subspaces to the whole space? And to prove this, we were going to use the Zorn's lemma, and the Zorn's lemma tells us that if X is a partially ordered set in which every chain has an upper bound has the maximal element. As of the statement says that we have constructed one set, then we have proved we have defined one relation, we have proved it as a partially ordered set, then we have selected one totally ordered subset, we have found its upper bound, and then we have said that the maximal element exists. Correct? Now, step by step process we have seen in the last lecture, but I'm not going to repeat all the steps. Right? Now, one more result we have seen regarding the consequences of the Hahn-Banach theorem. In this first consequence, it is asked us to show the existence of a functional f in n star. Okay, I told you, no, f in n star is equivalent to f on n. F in n star is equivalent to f on n. Therefore, here we are going to show the existence of a functional f on n or in n star such that this condition holds. But as we don't know what kind of elements this nonlinear space have, what is the norm actually defined, then it is somewhat difficult for us to go for the function defined on n directly. Therefore, as of one point x naught is given, a non-zero vector x naught in the nonlinear space n is given. What we were trying to do, we were trying to construct one subspace generated by this x naught. Once we generate this, the structure of the elements will be of this type, alpha x naught. Then one can define a functional and then extend this functional on the space m to a functional f on n. This is what a logic we have used, right? Now, while defining this function m to k, we will take care that this capital F will be defined accordingly, right? And then later we have verified that small f is a linear bounded which satisfies this f of x naught is equal to norm x naught. And in the fourth step, we have just used the Hahn-Banach theorem for giving the existence of a functional f in n star. Okay, let me go for one more result very similar to this previous one. Result number 2. It says that let M be closed linear subspace. Now we will check what are the points given in the statement, so that accordingly how can we form the corresponding subspace. Subspace of a normed linear space n and x naught be a vector not in n, not in M. Then if it is given d is a distance from x naught to m. However, we have calculated the distance between point and shape. Then it is asked us to, yes. Someone is giving
X naught plus M.
x naught.
Infimum.
Infimum We'll find out the distance between x naught and all the elements of M, and whatever is the infimum value, we will select this as a distance between x naught to M. Then it is asked us to show there exists a functional f in n star. Functional f in n star such that, what such that f of capital M is singleton 0, f of x naught is d, right, and norm of f is equals to 1. These are the points given to us. Okay, let us try to understand the statement first. M is given to be a linear subspace of a non-linear space N. This is M, say, and let this be M. One more, if x naught is a vector not in N, not in M means it is somewhere in N minus M. Okay. Later, D is given to be a distance between x naught to M. So the idea we were going to use for finding the distance is, there are infinite number of points in this set M. We will find out the distance of this point x naught with all the elements. Whichever will give us the infima will be the distance considered. Okay. For time being, somewhere here it is, I will call it is a distance DC, infimum value. Then our aim is to show the existence of a functional capital F defined on M such that three conditions to be proved: f of M singleton 0, f of x naught is d, and norm of f is equals to 1. Okay. Now again, can we find out the functional on M is the question. Again, the nature of elements of M, we don't know the nature of elements, right? And the functional, whatever the functional we wanted to show, this should involve this value d. So what we will do, we will try to construct a space spanned by M and x naught. See what I'm saying? We'll try to construct the space spanned by M and x naught. Okay, let this be a space spanned by M and x naught, and I'm going to call this be M naught, say. Can anyone tell me the nature of element in this M naught then?
X naught plus alpha into M.
Very good. Linear combination of elements are M and x naught. Correct now? For the nature is of the type x plus alpha x naught, where x is in M. Linear combination, no? Linear combination of elements of M and this point x naught. For now, I know the nature of elements of M naught exactly. Now we will try to define a function F. We will prove this as a functional on M naught, and then later we can extend it to a functional F defined on the whole space. Okay. Again, while defining this functional F on M naught, we will take care that this condition should be satisfied. Now, surely as f of x naught is given to BD, we have to define a functional F on M naught in such a way that this value will be D accordingly. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now let us first start with D is the distance between x naught to N. Given that D is distance from x naught to M. We will write out what is the formula we were going to use between distance between point x. D is equals to distance between x naught and the set M. This is nothing but norm of x naught minus x, provided x is in M. Okay. Here I have shown the sketch by considering norm to be a shortest distance. It is not necessary, no, that norm is always giving us a shortest distance. It is the way one can find out it satisfies those four conditions. Anyway, that distance can be calculated. So D is this distance between, which is given by, oh sorry, infima I forgot that. Infima of norm of x naught minus x, x is in M. Now we will form the space spanned by M and x naught. Okay. Since M is closed and x naught is not in M, D may I write greater than 0?
Yes, ma'am.
Now consider the subspace. Consider the subspace M naught, say. M naught will be a subspace spanned by M and X naught. For the element we are writing X plus alpha X naught such that X is in M and alpha be, yes, a scalar, no? Alpha belongs to K, I will get. Okay? Which is the space spanned by, which is the space spanned by capital M and X naught. Okay. Thus, how can I write an arbitrary element Y in M naught? Is it Y equals to X plus alpha X naught is unique representation. Correct? No? Because if we know that the space is spanned by some basis, therefore whatever is the representation we are giving there for the vector corresponding to the given vector space or the linear space, the representation is always unique. Now it's a time to define the functional. So here I will write define F naught on capital M naught by. Instead of F naught you can use F also. Right? Now what is F naught to be defined? F naught. Here I will write F naught is defined from M naught to K. Yes, we have to find out the value. We have to define this in such a way that F of X naught should be equal to D. Right now, let us check how we have defined in the previous result. In order to show F of X naught is norm of X naught, we have defined F of alpha X naught is alpha into norm of X naught. So that if I wanted to find capital F of X naught, it is nothing but small f of X naught because of this extension property. And then X naught can be written as 1 into X naught, where the value is giving us 1 into norm of X naught. Likewise, as of I wanted to show F of X naught is D, can anyone tell me how should I define F naught of X plus alpha X naught? Okay, see, what I wanted to ask is F naught of X naught we wanted to show D, na? This is my claim. If you look at this point and you look at this, F of X naught is equal to D, and one has to go for the defining this F naught. Okay, if you're looking at this, may I say it will be defined as alpha into D. Is it okay? If I define this as alpha into D, what will be F of X naught, F naught X naught?
1 into D, that is equal to D.
Yes, it is 1 into D. Actually, this can be written as 0 plus 1 into X naught, no? Combination, linear combination of X and X naught. And then it is 1 into D, which is D. If you're looking at this, we are trying to define the functional. Okay. Now, what is my aim to show first? To prove that this F naught is functional on M naught. Now, to prove this as a functional, how many conditions I need to verify?
3 in all.
Yes. In the first one, yes. In the first one, shall I go for linearity? Okay. In order to prove linearity, we will consider two elements, say y1, y2 in M naught. Let I will write. Let where now what will be the representation of y1? Linear combination of element of M and X naught. Therefore, let me write this as x1 plus alpha 1 X naught. Y2 will be x2 plus alpha 2 X naught. Where? Yes. What about x1, x2? Are the elements of each space? Yes, it belongs to M. And what about the scalars? Field. Corresponding to. Okay. Now what to consider? Wait for a few minutes. It is going blank. Next picture. Yes. Now what should I consider? A linear combination of y1 and y2. Na? Consider for any delta in Kc. What should I consider? F of y1 plus delta y2. Y1 we have defined as x1 plus alpha 1 X naught. Delta times x2 plus alpha 2 X naught. Okay. Now And if I look at this definition, x plus alpha x naught is defined as alpha into d. Means whatever the scalar used into d we have to write. Therefore, the main focus is on the scalar itself, right now? Therefore, here also we'll try to collect the scalars. Therefore, x1 plus delta x2, I will put it in one bracket. Okay. What are the coefficients of x naught? Alpha 1 delta alpha 2 into x naught. Okay. Now the definition of f naught tells us what will be the value?
Alpha 1 plus delta alpha 2
Into this is the scalar alpha 1 plus delta alpha 2 into d we have to write now. Now let me separate this as alpha 1 d plus delta times alpha 2 d. Now looking at this alpha 1 d, may I write this is f naught, f image of, sorry, f naught, no? F naught image of, yes? F naught image of
1
which
plus
element?
alpha 1 x naught.
Yes, it is x1 plus alpha 1 x naught. Delta times this is f naught image of x2 plus alpha 2 x naught. Okay. Hence, we have proved this is f naught of y1 into delta times f naught of y2. This proves that the function f naught is linear. The function f naught is linear. Now we will go for showing extension. No, sorry. F naught of x naught d we will show first. F naught of x naught d and f of m equal to singleton 0. These two we will prove, and then we will go for finding its norm value as well. Its normal. These 3 points we will find for f naught. And once we find for f naught, for its continuation, we will get this for capital F as well. Now, why we were not going for boundedness again? Because whenever we were finding the value of norm of f naught, while proving the value itself, we will get the boundedness value. So we were not showing boundedness separately. Therefore, in this step 2, we will show that f naught of x naught is d. And what about f naught of capital M? We have to show singleton 0. Why these two taken? Getting me now? Because we wanted to show capital F of capital M is singleton 0 and capital F naught of x naught is d. Therefore, we will find the value for these two first. Consider. First, I will consider f naught operated on x naught. And how can I write it? Let me write it as a linear combination of the type x plus alpha x naught. Therefore, is it 0 plus 1 into x naught? Good. Therefore, how the function will be operated? This is 1 into d, which is d. Okay. And now f naught of m equal to singleton 0 we have to show. Na? Therefore, what I will do, I will consider f naught of m. M is an element of m node. Again, this we will try to write it as a linear combination of the elements of this type. How can I write them?
0 plus 1 into m.
No. This is an element of m I wanted to write.
M plus 0 into x naught.
Very good. This is m plus 0 into x naught. Is it okay? Now, how the function is defined? 0 into d is equals to 0 for all m in m. For all m in m. Therefore, what we have shown, f naught image of every element in capital M is 0. Therefore, can I write f naught of set m is singleton 0. Set we were writing on both sides. Okay. 2 points we have to know. Let us go third to prove norm of f naught is equal to 1. This I will write step. And in the same step, we will get this function to be bounded. Actually, once I show the value of norm of f naught is 1, can I say f naught is bounded?
Yes, ma'am.
Because boundedness means what we wanted to show actually, norm of f naught of x is or equals to norm of f naught into norm of x. This value should be bounded, na? But if norm of f naught I am getting itself as 1. Therefore, actually it is sufficient to show norm of f naught is 1. Okay, consider what will be norm of f naught as per this operator norm definition. Now, for the sake of convenience, I am going to use third definition. Is it mod of f naught of y upon norm of y in m naught, and no doubt y is non-zero. Yes. Is it okay? Third definition
Yes, ma'am.
operated now. Third definition of operator not. Okay. Now, when we have a question, why the third definition was used? Actually, the distance d will get involved in this, and dd will cancel to one another, and then we are getting a value 1. If I write simply norm of f naught of x, y belongs to m naught, y not equals to 0, we cannot proceed further. We cannot proceed further. That's why we were going for the third definition. Okay, let me write y as a linear combination of x and x naught in the modulus. In the denominator also I will write the same. No doubt. Now x is in m I will write. Okay. Alpha b scalar. Right now. And here I have to predict. Here I have to say x and x naught both should not be 0. Because if both are 0, what will be my denominator? If y non-zero ensures that x and x naught is non-zero. Okay. What is the definition f naught operated on this? Alpha into d, na? Okay. Now what I will try to do, I will try to take alpha common from the denominator as well. What will happen if I wanted to take alpha common from the denominator? The term will be of the type x by alpha plus x naught, na? Yes, pinsa se. Is it okay? Now, what I will do, this alpha can be taken out with the modulus. In the numerator also we will have mod alpha, na? Can I write this as mod alpha into d? D is always greater than 0. Therefore, here no need to write d in the modulus. Therefore, mod alpha can be cancelled. Very easy. Let us write what I wanted to say. Supremum. Numerator I will write mod alpha into d. Okay. In the denominator, this mod alpha can be taken out of the norm with the modulus, and v remains with x by alpha plus x naught provided with the same conditions. This is mod f naught we have started with, right? Now, this mod alpha will get cancelled. D is independent of your x, therefore let me take it d outside. This supremum 1 upon. If x is an element of m, alpha be any scalar. What I say, x is an element of m, alpha be any scalar. What about this term x by alpha? Is it an element of m again? Here only I will write x by alpha is an element of m. Okay? Is it okay? But now I will try to write in
Yes,
this one x naught plus something I wanted to write. Why I wanted to write x naught plus something? Because now I wanted to involve the relation d. Initially we have written, no, what is the d? D is infimum. I call this as my statement 1. D is infimum x naught minus x. That is distance between x naught and x. So what I will do, I will try to write this x by alpha as a some element of m, and I will put this as some minus z. Z is equals to minus z is equals to x by alpha, which is an element of m. Is it okay? Now looking at this, this is the suprema of the elements of the type reciprocal. Therefore, can I write this as 1 upon infima of the corresponding elements? Is this relation okay to everyone? Minus z is in m. Can I write z is in m now? If minus z is in M, surely z will be in M. Now what this is nothing but B, no? Infimum. And hence we were getting the value as 1. What we have proved? Norm of F naught we have proved. Therefore here itself can I say F naught is bounded. Okay? F naught is bounded. Thus, F naught is a functional defined on which space? M, no?
M naught.
Yes, it is M naught. What's that? F naught of X naught. What we have proved? D. F of capital M singleton 0 and norm of F naught is equals to 1. Now what is the last step remaining? In the last step, we will just extend this functional to functional F. Right now? So what we wanted to show in the last step? F is a functional on capital M n such that, what such that? 3 steps it is asked us to show. F of X naught is equal to S D, no? F of capital M is equal to singleton 0 and norm of capital F is equal to 1. Okay? Now here what I will write directly, shall I write? By using, wait a minute. Okay. Now here can I write by using Hahn-Banach theorem. Hahn-Banach theorem. May I write directly there exists a functional capital F defined on N. Functional word I have to get. Functional capital F defined on capital N such that. What such that? Norm of F naught is equals to norm of capital F and capital F is an extension of F naught. And as it is an extension, what about F naught of X naught? Where it F naught of X also. F naught of X naught is F of X naught. Sorry, F of X naught is F naught of X naught. F naught of X naught we have proved already D, and this is on which space? M naught on D it is. Okay, it is not necessary to write on M naught because at point it is asked, no? And F of capital M is F naught of capital M equal to singleton 0. What is the reason behind this? F naught capital F is equals to F naught defined on M naught, right now? And M is a subspace of M naught. Therefore, if it is true on M naught, it is equally true on M. Correct? Also, it is true at the point X naught also. Okay? Yes, any difficulty? It will be the proof of our second consequence. Yes, students? Understood this consequence? Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, one more consequence of the same type was there. Okay, you can go for that. You can prove the result very easily. I'll just write the statement here and I will tell you what the function f is defined. Let M be closed subspace of a non-linear space capital N and X naught be a vector not in M. Again the definition was used. if B is a distance from x naught to capital M, then prove that there exists a functional capital F in n star such that, see what we wanted to show, such that f of capital M is singleton 0, f of x naught is 1, and norm of f is equals to 1 upon d. Check. Same statement as of this result number 2, only change is in these 2 points. F of x naught is d previously and norm f equal to 1. What is my question? All the rest things are same. Correct? No? The question is how you are going to define your f naught. This is n, this is m given, x naught is given, then we will form a space spanner by m and x naught, we will call it as m naught. We will define a functional f naught and later I can extend it to f. The question is how you are going to define this f naught. F naught operated on m naught, that is x plus alpha x naught. Look at these two definitions and you have to answer. Previously we have defined alpha into d, na? What we have defined previously for the previous result? Alpha into d we have defined. So that f naught of x naught comes out with 1, comes out with d. But here we wanted to show f naught of x naught is, yes, 1. So can you tell me what should I define? Huh? Yes?
Alpha, ma'am.
Yes, it is correct, alpha. This is your definition. And the rest thing as it is, you have to verify. Okay? Therefore, I'll keep this for homework. Try for this. Definition I told you. What remains to show? F naught is linear. Verify the 3 points. Find out the value of norm of f. Norm f naught is also with the same lines. But here d will not be there. And if d will not be there, what will be my answer? 1 upon d. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the next point we will study regarding natural embedding of n into n star. Do you know what is embedding process? A detailed proof I will take in the next lecture, but here we will discuss natural embedding.
When it's continuing.
Yes. Someone is saying something.
One is contained in another
Very good.
by some condition.
Yes, one mathematical structure I will call. One mathematical structure is contained in another mathematical structure. Therefore, shall I write the word embedding? Embedding is one instance of some mathematical structure contained in contained within another instance. Okay. Now here we wanted to show the embedding of n in n double star, and that too naturally. Naturally means by verifying the nature of elements of n and n double star, we were going to show that n is naturally embedded in n double star. That is, one can say n is a subset of n double star in some sense. Okay. Generally, whenever we were saying that A is subset of B, what the statement we were writing? X is in A implies X is in B. Okay. But here, this natural embedding doesn't mean that every element is in n double star, because the nature of element may be different. But still, we were saying that n is embedded or n is contained in n double star. Before discussing this, let us try to understand the nature of elements in these sets. Okay. If I start with n, what is n we have studied? This is normed linear space, correct? No? Normed linear space. What is the nature of elements in this normed linear spaces or vector spaces? A structure we have written X and these are the vectors, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is n star we have? N star
Dual
is,
space of N.
huh? Yes, this is the dual space, no? This is the dual space of n or conjugate space of n. What is the nature of elements in this n star?
Bounded linear function.
Functionals. Okay, these are the notation F I will write, and what these are? These are the functionals. Right? Now, let us consider one more dual space of n star. Before the notation we were giving is n double star, and this is collection of all bounded linear transformations from n star to k. Correct now? This is called a second dual space. Okay, what will be the nature of elements in this? Functionals again. Let me denote a symbol capital here. These are also the functionals. Functionals defined on what?
N star.
N star to k, right? Functional defined on n star. Now we wanted to say that the elements of this n are embedded in the space n double star. Whether these are the Banach spaces, n star and n double star.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, these are the Banach spaces. Therefore, now the job is to show the elements of n are contained in n double star. But one may have a question, because the nature of elements in n are vectors, that of nature of elements in n double star are the functionals. Okay. Now we will try to understand what is the relation between the elements of n and n double star. For this, I will draw a simple sketch. Just pay attention. Here I will mark n. I will mark n star, and here I will mark some k. K I will mark. Okay. Now what we have is the functionals, or the elements in n star are the functionals. The elements of n star are the functionals defined from n to k. Elements of n star are the functional defined from n star to k, and here we will relate n and n star also. Okay. So what I am going to show you is, let us write the nature of elements. If I start with a vector x in n, what is the functional we have defined? Small f is the symbol, na? Small f. Correct, no? On n star, in n star. Here I can, shall I write it is in n star also. Now here we have defined capital F in n double star, which are the mappings from n star to k. Okay. Now if I start with a vector x in n under the functional F or under the function F, what will be the image in k? Yes. What will be the image? Try to understand this concept.
Scalar.
Yes, it is the scalar and is of the type f of x. Okay?
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
What is the nature of elements in this n star? Small f type. Correct? No? Small f type. And then what we were doing? We were operating this functional capital F on a functional f. Small f. So what is the nature of element in this k resultant?
Capital F of F.
Small f. Okay. But if we try to understand, this capital F of x is the scalar, this capital F of f is also scalar. Means somewhere the equality, if it holds, what one can say, whatever the scalar we were getting, which is f of f equated to f of x, means this scalar depends on your original element x.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now. But if you change the element here, say y, what will be the corresponding element? f of y. Whether it is equated to the same scalar? No, because
No,
for
ma'am.
one scalar we have only one image as it is the function. Therefore, this is equated to another f of f. Therefore, whatever scalars we were equating here, those are the scalars depending on the vectors in the linear space n. Therefore, for the sake of convenience, this scalar, whatever the functionals are used, they have written with the help of these vectors. Means the functional f is written as fx, the functional here it was written as fy. That is, the functional fx are depending on x. This functional f of y are depending on y. Means to every vector x in n, may I say there is one functional in n double star.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For every vector x in n, here I will write, for all x in n, there exists a functional fx in n double star. This is the relation now between the elements n and n double star. Is it okay? Now what is
Yes,
the
ma'am.
job to show? This n is contained in n double star. Rather, we were going to show these two spaces is having isometric isomorphism between them. See what I'm going to show. This n to n double star is isometric isomorphism. What is isometric isomorphism now? How many conditions it have?
1 homomorphism.
Homomorphism here can I replace by linearity.
Yes, ma'am.
And one more.
T and T inverse.
No. That is for topological
Restricted
isomorphism. No, that is for topological isomorphism. Isometry you are forgetting. Right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Isometry and isomorphism. Isomorphism is by one linearity. Okay? But this is the job to show isometric isomorphism. And if this mapping becomes onto, one can say that n is isometrically isomorphic to n double star. And whenever this is, say, the space is called as a reflexive space. Why reflexive? N, the first dual space is n star, and its dual space is again n, with the sense of equivalence relation, no doubt. Whenever I am writing n is isomorphic to n double star, whether they are exactly same?
No, ma'am.
No, they are not exactly same, but in some sense the elements are equal. Correct, no? In some sense the elements are equal. So whenever this mapping isometric isomorphism is onto, if it is onto, not necessarily onto always, but for those spaces for which the mapping is onto as well, then n is isometrically isomorphic to n double star, and the space is called as reflexive. Why reflexive? Because one dual space of n is n star, another dual space comes with reflection. It comes back. N is equal to n double star. That's why the space is called as reflexive space. The space is called as reflexive space. Is it okay? This is what natural embedding. Here, why the word natural was used, because all the discussion we have made with the help of nature of elements of the corresponding spaces. Right now? Nature of element of the corresponding spaces. Therefore, whatever the embedding is going to hold, whatever the subset kind of relation is going to hold due to the nature of element. That's why this is called a natural embedding of n in n double star. And with this sense, may I say n is embedded in double star. I'm not going to say it is a subset. Correct now? Because for the subset relation particularly, every element of one set should be there in the second. But here, as the elements are not equal, but for every element in n, we have one element in n double star. And what is that element? Here we have written now. For every x in n, there exists one fx in n double star. In this sense, we can say n N is embedded in N double star. This is not subset relation. I am writing this as embedding. Contained in. And this contained in relation is in some sense, not like this, not like the subset one. Okay? Understood this natural embedding of N in N double star with the help of?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You have a next lecture also, I think. Okay. Now, in the next lecture, what we were going to show, whatever N to N double star is an isometric isomorphism. For this, we were going to define a mapping set J from N to N double star. Can anyone tell me how this mapping is defined? Look at this. For every x in N, there exists one fx. Therefore, how can I define J on x? Yes. How can I define J on x? Is it fx? याच्यात x एलिमेंट्स आहेत, याच्यात fx टाइपचे एलिमेंट्स आहेत. मला फक्त j फंक्शन डिफाइन करायचं दोघांमध्ये. तर कसा येईल तो? g ऑफ x इज fx. करेक्ट ना?
Yes, ma'am.
And how fx is defined? Fx is defined on functional year. How it is
F of x.
defined? Ah, very good. Fx of f is f of x. If you understand these 2 points, then it is very easy for us to show this mapping is isometric isomorphism. To show it is isometric, before showing it is isometric isomorphism, we will show this whatever capital Fx we have selected is a functional first. Okay, after showing Fx is a functional with this relation, then we will show this J is isometric isomorphism, verifying these 3 conditions: 1, linearity and isometry. Okay, proving this result is not a difficult task. Some 4 steps to be followed. One by one, all the definitions we have with us. One by one, we will verify all those properties. Understanding the concept is important. Why it is naturally embedding and why it is isometric isomorphism between N and N terms. प्रत्येक वेळेस ऑन टू होतो असंच नाही, पण ज्या स्पेसेसला ऑन टू होतो त्याला रिफ्लेक्सिव्ह स्पेस म्हणतात. I hope you have understood the word reflexive, meaning of reflexive. Dual space of N is N star. Its dual space is again coming equal to N in some sense, with this sense of isometric isomorphism. That's why it reflects back. That's why the space is reflexive. Okay, let us stop for today. If you have any difficulty in today's lecture, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will go for, or we will stop there. We will end up with the lecture. In the next lecture, we will go for proving this. Actually, we are moving towards the end of Banach spaces. After this, we have very few points remaining. 3-4 points are remaining only. Okay? No difficulty? Shall I stop then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for being with me for this lecture.